Hi guys, this is Alea speaking. Oops. Um, yeah, this is gonna be probably the last thing I put out on an unecological platform. It's something that I've been doing on and off for more than a year, where I disconnect from the carbon cycle entirely as much as possible, except for breathing. And so I'm gearing up to do that again, but I have a job now, so I have to split my time at work as different from what I do on my own in my home, for example. So it's going to be business as usual for my job, but carbon neutral business for all other times, the best I can, which means I will have a dearth of entertainment as usual, which really makes me irritated. But maybe it'll force me to be productive, so that's also a good thing. Where do we stand right now? So I built a prototype of Fast Forward, and it works in theory. It's a prototype. I thought it was an MVP, but it's a prototype quality type of thing that I have now. So this prototype um, is just an example I use to get people to understand the bigger vision, I guess. Um, I'm debating whether I should learn how to code because what other way I can't see what other way to do it. Right at this point, I've been through these paranoias that I believe are founded on realistic things that were really troubling me, but I had no through line for saying, okay, what is the actual cause of all these things? So I sounded like a paranoid weirdo because it was so hard to describe what was going on with me. But having been through that and seeing the echoes of it every now and then, where people will make me uncomfortable based on the same things that used to make me uncomfortable, which was the first reason that I started to have these offline detoxes, these internet detoxes in the first place, because the internet was getting gnarly and weird, and I couldn't find the actual through line. I just knew that it was gnarly and weird, and I didn't want to be there. And yeah, so here we are. I have to prepare with the next stage of my strike, which will be lifestyle based, trying to get to a zero waste household. The lucky thing is that I work um, in a place where I have to pass through a lot of vendors to get to work. Um, on public transportation. So going from public transportation to other public transportation, I walk through the vendors and they have a lot of fresh produce. So, and it's also very cheap and you can haggle. So it's a good idea to take advantage of that. But then, like, how do I cook? I can't cook, so I have to eat raw until I find a way to deal with the stove situation, these type of things. This is the beginning of carbon neutral strike version 2.0. And 2.0 is the version where I say I don't want to suffer. I don't want to suffer for a cause. I don't want to sacrifice myself and my needs for a cause. I don't want to give up all vanity and all excess and all luxury just because I want to ensure I don't pollute while doing so, because those things are aided and abetted by pollution somehow. So it's like I can't do them in good conscience. But yes, I don't want to suffer anymore for my beliefs. I think that helps strengthen the opposing energies that pull away from the goal that I'm aiming for. Those opposing energies, because I'm not going to talk about enemies or anything. They're opposing energies that are drawing, and they are legion, and they are variable, and they go up in numbers and down in numbers all the time. So it's an opposing energy. It's an opposing energy. That opposing energy is not something that I let detract from my progress anymore. That opposing energy demands sacrifice. That opposing energy demands blood. That opposing energy demands suffering. That opposing energy demands weakening of the positive opposition of the negative energy. They want to weaken it in order to thrive off of its suffering, right? And I'm not talking about any particular they, I'm talking about the way negative energy manifests in our lived conscious experience. How does negativity manifest? And what are you supposed to do when it manifests? Well, one thing I'm not going to do is suffer and be in pain because of it. So the world, when you understand the full scale, and it took me years, it took me a long time working in climate to really get a grasp of the full scale, which is fine, that's valid. That's how I wanted to process that information, one section at a time. That's fair, that's valid. So that's what I did. And I got the full scope eventually when the plastic piece in the puzzle made itself apparent. Plastic can start crop failure. Plastic can modify hormone behavior. Plastic is a toxin trap. Plastic is also plastic. I don't want to eat it. I don't want it in my clouds. I don't want it in my Arctic. I don't want it those places. So when I understood the full scope of the thing, when we take into account the animals, because I'm vegan now, more or less. I've been vegetarian to accommodate people sometimes, but I'm mostly vegan. Um, I I care about the animals now, and then I think about how gargantuan the task is of saving the animals is. Changing what people do 3 times a day already. 3 times a day they do it, and if we change how they do that, difficult task. So the enormity of the task presents itself, but at the same time, I refuse to let it make me suffer anymore. I choose to seek joy and freedom of expression and creativity and ingenuity as much as possible. Negative detractors, negative opposing energies are something I am learning day by day how not to let negative projection hit and affect my reality. So that's one thing that's important. So this time while I go into my carbon neutral strike, I don't know how long I'll hold out for because it can be miserable. I've offset my music streaming um, footprint um, already for the year, but it's still not enough because I started watching YouTube again. Because I don't watch Netflix anymore, I don't watch anything. Um, I feel like outside of the zeitgeist, I feel like a weird person and a wallflower who doesn't mix well with others. I feel awkward because I don't know fully what my grasp on reality is and when things will start happening that are not tied to reality as much as it should be. So I'll hear this or I'll hear that. And I'm pretty sure that it's fine, but because of a diagnosis that I have, I have to second guess myself, and I have to come into my own as a neurodiverse individual who's independent, more or less, um, and who has to rely upon their senses, but also know that sometimes their senses are supposedly false. I'm not fully in agreement with my diagnosis. As someone who smoked weed all day, every day for years, it's gonna be weird sometimes. And it only gets medical when there's pain involved. So there was pain involved, so I finally acquiesced to the doctor's um, uh, suggestions. And I will tell you what kind of pain I experienced. It's really fucking weird. I used to get last year these headaches on my in my forehead between my eyebrows thereabouts and above it. These painful um, shooting of pain when I was very stressed, and it felt like a Harry Potter scar. I would rub it with the base of my palm, just like Harry Potter does. And this is the thing about literature and all these things, right? Literature is often, when it's done really well, it often takes reality and just uses a piece of aluminum foil and glass to reflect it back. It's counterfeit reality, but it is reflecting a lot of one to one oppositions, where it's like one tree in the real world for a fake tree described in the narrative. So we talk about things that I'm obsessed with as narratives. Even though I've never read it, I like the movies and I like the lore. Dune. Dune feels real. Dune feels real. Harry Potter. I did not think Harry Potter felt real, but because Harry Potter is basing itself on something really specific, the truth comes out in other ways. So apparently, Harry Potter's scar pain that he would feel on his forehead is a thing that you can feel. And I was embroiled with the idea of eco fascists who might be amongst the ranks of people who claim to want environmental things, quote unquote, but they are willing to do inhumane things in order to achieve environmental goals. That's the main idea of an eco-fascist, I guess, with a racial component, because fascism usually has a racial component. And I'll just sidebar for a second to say that my game Sedition State Ecology that I made was I was asked if no, I was told that people on the subreddit for solar punk on Reddit don't want to necessarily play my game because it is in reference to ecofascism and nobody's really like about that. And the game, to make it worse, is called SSE, like Hitler's SS. It's a bit like Hitler's SS because it's a dictator game. It's a military takeover game, and it's called SSE. So it's a bit tongue in cheek when I finally realized what that meant, because I would call it state ecology before I had figured out what the initials shortened into. But a part of the weird things that are happening, I get into double speak unwittingly all the time. I make double entendres and triple entendres and quadruple entendres naturally, not knowing what I'm doing, not planning ahead, and it just happens. So I made SSE, right? And the solar punk community on Reddit was saying that maybe nobody wants to really like upvote this post and participate because it reminds them of ecofascism, which is a fair thing to say, but the game has nothing to do with racial components. It has to do with a war to give animals freedom and then ruling the country like a banana republic. There's no racial component, which I think is key for criticizing something as eco-fascist. But if you want to call someone a fascist on a sliding scale without having the racial component being involved, which is a very big part of fascism and why it's so scary, if you want to take out the racial component and say that, oh, just anybody who's a dictator for with ecological goals is an eco-fascist, well, fine, that's what you want to do. So that happened. But in the bigger scheme of things, yeah, I came across these stories. Like I said, Dune has this really weird eerie real realism to it. Harry Potter might be reflecting real things, including how what kinds of migraines you get when you're trying to, I don't know, outmaneuver and outthink uh, a very organized and lethal and sinister opponent that is steeped in all the negatives of society coming out at once, like a pustule on the surface of the earth. So you have that. Um, and so I was criticized for SSE. Um, I get that, whatever. I didn't push it after a while because I didn't want to trigger anybody. But then you have this Harry Potter scar thing that's happening to me. You have um just these weird things that are like tying into reality. And I will tell you the stories that I think are really making themselves real in my life. So Dune, Harry Potter, um a bit Twilight, um Game of Thrones has that realism as well. But I didn't want Game of Thrones. If I'm a person who's a liberator, perhaps it's the start of my story, and I am Daenerys. Except I'm gonna get a better ending than that bitch, because like that's such fuckery, that ending. Anyway, I'm going off track. Yeah, but these stories that have these realisms into them, that like J.K. Rowling could have had a migraine like that, right? Where it's like focus definitely on the frontal lobe. Why? And hurting your forehead and your where your third eye is supposed to be hurting. What was she talking about? Nazis had occultists. So Death Eaters are based on this idea of occultism in fascism, racialized fascism. And so J.K. Rowling said there are good witches and bad witches, and the bad witches are the ones who categorize people and subjugate people and use might as a means of subjugation of others. So there's occultism in Harry Potter that's reflective of the occultism in the Nazi regime. And so I did not know that full tie. I just knew that, Death Eaters are the baddies. Over the years, I came to understand it was a metaphor for World War II. But yeah, mysterious things are happening, and these stories are manifesting very real. Matrix is a story that manifests very real for me, but I already tooted that horn on I already tooted that horn before about how that story is real. I've been in situations where I see second by second how things would have played out if I would have followed my first instinct. Over and over again, I saw it for like weeks, months. If I did this, then that would have happened and it would have worked out perfectly, but I got in my head and it didn't happen. And all of this, all these little weird things, I'm seeing them happen, I'm seeing them play out. And in the meantime, the world requires climate rescue. And we are no longer talking about projections of 1.5 to stay alive. That's gone. We're now talking about 2 degrees warming, 3 degrees warming. And it seems as though people think that this is an inevitable thing. And so, because it's not inevitable, and just because life is weird and gnarly, doesn't mean that we don't have a job to do. So, the conversation comes back to the strike, the carbon neutral strike. What will I be doing to make my voice be heard, but also ensure that I don't suffer for a cause? I'm no one's martyr. So, I have several options. I can do a corporate partnership that I'm exploring already, corporate partnership to help spread the message, or I can go anti establishment and use my body, my physical form, as challenging as it is to see a woman
with floppy tits who refuses to get surgery. Maybe that will do something. My other sons have not done anything, so probably won't do anything this time either. During the carbon neutral strike that I will take up whenever I'm at home, I'll have to think about eating differently. I'll have to think about security of the house and lighting the place at night differently. Um, Actually, that's not a problem, but yeah, like doing stuff inside the house at nighttime. It's not safe to be doing stuff in the house in the dark. But my lifeline will be my phone because I've already compensated the energy usage of my phone for the duration of a year. And I just got news from my tree planting partner that we can't just plant one trees. We have to give them a set amount of money each time that makes sense for the processing fees that they have to use to get the money. So I don't know. I don't know how I'm gonna plant more trees with you guys' help, but that would also be good because we want to plant trees and save the planet, don't we? Yes, we do. So yeah, I have an album on the platform that you'll see called Seekers of Utopia. And the final song, well, there's this one of the songs on that album is called Cloak. And that was a nod and a reference to Jordan Rakai, who has an album called Cloak that I have experienced zeniths of giddiness, excitement, um, emotion, emotion to that music before when I first went full on manic 5 or 6 or 7 years ago. That first time I was listening to Jordan Rakai, so I did a reference to Cloak because I just I really like loved Jordan Rakai for those albums that he did, and then Cloak also has to do subconsciously with Harry Potter. And the album is called Seeker originally, and now it's Seekers of Utopia. The extended version is Seekers of Utopia. So it's all coming full circle, and that album ends with the song called Power. And I say, my power was a cloak, my power was a scar, the living antidote, doubting who we are. And I made that song 5, 6, 7 years ago, and then 1 year ago, I have Harry Potter scar pains in my forehead, around my third eye, and the split between, you have a little split or a little bone divot on your forehead, like when it's leading up to your scalp. So, what does this all mean? I made an album about Harry Potter. Harry Potter helped grow me. We would be between houses and we would go to the FNAC and I would go to the book section, take up a Harry Potter book, and read it because we didn't have it bought as yet. And even if we bought it, our belongings were spread around the place and being kept by different people. So it's not like I would have access to my books right away because we didn't have a place that was steady to collect things. I read Harry Potter while we were between houses in France. And I would go to the book section in the English book sections and I would read Harry Potter and they would let me because I wasn't dirty. Like my hands weren't dirty. I wasn't anything unkempt. I just looked like somebody who was on hard times, which I was. They let me read those books. Harry Potter meant a lot to me to the point where my best friend from high school went to England after high school and she got her hands on the Harry Potter books first before I did in Jamaica. And she spoiled the ending to say which that one person had died. And I was like, why did you I was so upset that she told me one of the persons who had died instead of it wasn't even the full plot, that there was still plenty of mystery, but I was so deeply hurt by that spoiler that we never really ever patched up things again after that. Of course we were distant, so it made also sense that we would kind of drift apart, but I was really wounded by that because it just meant so much to me. I mean, now I've calmed down because J.K. Rowling has been turf-tacular. But for me personally, Harry Potter meant a lot. It was my favorite book. Um, and now I have Harry Potter scar pains sometimes in my forehead. What is that? What is that? Something almost makes me feel like I'm being trolled by somebody who has access to my internal functioning. And somebody just sent a nano robot up to my forehead to zap right there because, like, oh, seeker, you're a seeker, haha, it's funny. That's my big paranoia right there. I'll tell you. That's what I'm sharing right there. That's my big paranoia that I've made enemies, and they have like unlimited funds to exact revenge. But all that does is that little paranoia. All that does is make me want to be a good person to everybody, so that nobody is ever angry at me and powerful enough to do something about it. Because I can think of some very, very gnarly crimes, man. This era that we're in, and it's the Anthropocene. This era, we have so many ways to hurt each other. And that is why social media and other platforms and other community outreach programs and stuff like that have been doing their damnedest to make sure that we understand each other, that we can see each other as human beings, that we can exchange stories and see the humanity in each story, that we can see that there's more than one side to a story, it's many perspectives and places spectral. Unless we understand that, then all this technology that we're getting, all these advances that we're making are going to just be used to destroy us. It's not totally off base to say that if I would make an enemy of somebody powerful, they could send a nanorobot up through my nose and make me think it's a fly that got in there and then just fuck up my system. We are at that point. And so, at that point, where everyone has to be on board with what ethics means, because ethics is survival. Ethics is about survival. Everybody has a different opinion on how best to survive because of their vantage point, but everybody agrees that there's some sort of ethics. Even if you're saying that um, might is right, that is still an ethic that you're, yeah, unless you're just totally amoral, in which case you're a polar opposite of moral. So I can't, like dispute it further. But most people have ethics of a sort in order to assist them with survival. And let's not use a naturalistic fallacy to say that everything that comes out of nature is just perfect and unique and beautiful, because absurdity is just as strong an evolutionary tool as is um, ethics or rationality. Absurdity is just as much of a tool, because if you think um, elephants are friendly when other people say that elephants are not friendly, and you just say, no, I think all elephants are friendly, and so you go through with some strength and some kind of like bravado when you meet an elephant and it doesn't kill you, whereas maybe kill somebody else who goes in scared and wants to run and causes a ruckus. This is an example of who's going to survive in that situation. It's not always going to be the right person, but absurdity is an evolutionary tool that we make use of as well as ethics or logic or religion or whatever to tell you how you're supposed to go through life in order to survive a long time. So yeah, that's what ethics is. And I kind of forget how I got on that topic of ethics and the survival. Oh yes, because we're in the techno future that people want, and we're trying to decide if it's going to be cyberpunk or solar punk. We're trying to decide. Um, will it be a hellscape, or will it be copacetic? That's what we're trying to decide right now globally as a global family of human beings. So, how do we navigate that? We have to build up a robust understanding of ethical behavior. And that's what we have been doing with these social justice movements, with the social media campaigns that you see for those kinds of movements, with the soft power and soft skills of entertainment, including these kind of stories, music, including these kind of stories of us all having a shared humanity, a shared lineage together as human beings that relates us as human beings, but also as family. And we have all this stuff that we try to do to emphasize the need to be cognizant of um, that shared ethic that needs to be there for us to understand and work with each other, um, given that our technologies are so strong now. I think that we've worked parallel well, but now in my existence of mystery and trying to recalculate what's real, what's not real, what happened over that past year that is worth remembering, what is not. Um, all I can say is that life is a bit stranger than I previously thought, but it's also that something where everything becomes banal at some point. Everything becomes banal at some point. So it starts out very interesting, it starts out very shocking, but then every day having the same little things over and over and just very small variations is boring. So I mean, I'll share the developments of how the story goes. Somehow I mark myself as Harry Potter, I guess, or this is something that happens to people, I guess. I don't know why I was getting shooting scar pains in my forehead, and I'm not making it up. I'm not making it up. Um, but you're free to believe whatever you want. But yeah, while I was at the doctor, I was in a mental health institution, and I spoke about the forehead pain, and the medicine assisted with taking it down. Now, this is gonna be the last thing I talk about. We're gonna wrap it up soon. But the medication, first of all, when I went on the medication, my vision blurred and was difficult to manage. So the medication literally, because I had some visions of future plans that I wanted to execute, and the medication when I went on it, it literally changed my vision. So it felt like an ominous omen for my aspirations. Um, but I don't want to get I don't get too superstitious. I allow it to exist and I observe it, but I don't engage with it until it's convincing enough. So I'm just gonna mention all the little coincidences to you guys, and you guys can make up your mind, huh? So yeah, um, these small things happening, um, and I just ride the wave, and then it becomes banal after a while. It becomes boring, and I just want the new. I want the next thing. But yeah, the medication took the pain away, more or less, but the medication changed my vision, and the medication makes me not freak out whenever the coincidences occur. But I don't know if it's not the medication that makes me not freak out or the fact that I'm bored of it by now. Could be both. Anyway, it's been a good chat. This is my last video on YouTube for a while until it becomes completely ecological. I don't think that's far off, but for now, I need to find completely ecological places to spend my free time. My work, and this is the thing about the beast that I was saying. I called it the negative energy. You can also call it the beast, the invisible beast, but the palpable beast of the way that we have structured today's society and negatives that are attached to everyone who participates, just regardless of their intention, because that's how it wins as well. that you go in with a good intention. Oh, I want to feed my child. Here's some plastic wrapping. Here's some cardboard boxes. Here's some gas emissions, and you can feed your child. What a good thing you've done. No, not really. Not really good. Just looks like it, because you are going in with good intentions, but getting out something that is ultimately a portent of death. Really. So yeah, on the medication and the decrease of the um severity of the situation leads to me not longer having many headaches like that. I don't have those headaches anymore. That's good. But yeah, um yeah, it's been strange. And now I'm looking for the part where it gets fun. That's what I'm looking for. Where we're doing what we need to do and we're not worried about the future because we're taking on the problem actively and with good energy. So yeah, I said I had some routes. Corporate route. Yeah. The other route is shock and awe. I've already tried that. It doesn't work. It's attention seeking. I don't like it. It doesn't work. I don't know how to do that. But guys, I thought about just like going naked, which I've done already. Going naked and seeing if I shoot it pretty enough and if I make the message clear enough, then somebody will hear it and share it and it will blow up and then we'll finally have the momentum that I really want to see behind the climate issue. But I already tried stunts and they didn't work. So now I have to sacrifice to the beast. So I'm going to sacrifice and do my carbon neutral strike again. But I insist and I ask you to assist that it is not suffering. I don't want to suffer for a good cause anymore because that makes it bad. If I'm suffering, it's bad. And I think that's part of how they keep us down because we have to sacrifice and suffer in order to challenge the powers that be, the negative influences of energy in the world. We have to suffer, and so it's still their game. And their game. Game. Yeah. No bueno. All right. So we don't suffer anymore, right? We don't do that.